The glass slipped from my hand, shattering on the hardwood floor, wine pooling like blood across the grain. Sarah's voice sliced through the quiet, sharp and smug, her words landing like a slap. "You're such a complete disappointment, Mark." Her lips curled, eyes glinting with something colder than disdain. Triumph, maybe. I stood frozen in our dimly lit dining room, the air heavy with the scent of rosemary from the untouched dinner cooling on the table. My sister, Emily, leaned back in her chair, her fork clattering against her plate. "Well, damn, Sarah," she said, voice low but steady. "If you don't want him, I'll take him." The room stilled, Sarah's smirk faltering, and my heart thudded, a sickening rhythm of dread and something I couldn't name. I'd felt the fracture in our marriage for months, like a hairline crack in a mirror you pretend not to see. Sarah's late nights at the office, her phone angled just out of view, the way her laughter stopped short when I entered a room. It all piled up, small stones in a wall I didn't want to climb. But I loved her. God, I loved her. The kind of love that makes you swallow your doubts, choke on them, because the alternative is a void too wide to face. I told myself it was stress, her new promotion, the long hours. I told myself I was paranoid, that the texts she deleted were nothing, that the scent of unfamiliar cologne on her scarf was just my imagination. That night, Emily's words hung in the air, a challenge or a lifeline I couldn't tell. Sarah's face shifted, her eyes darted to me, then back to Emily, her confidence cracking like thin ice. "What's that supposed to mean?" she snapped, but her voice trembled at the edges. Emily just smiled, slow and sharp, and took a sip of her wine. I wanted to speak, to demand answers, but my throat felt sealed shut, my chest tight with the weight of unspoken questions. The dining room chandelier flickered, casting jagged shadows across Sarah's face, and I wondered if I'd ever really known her. The next morning, Sarah was gone before I woke. Her side of the bed was cold, the sheets barely wrinkled, as if she'd never been there. A note on the counter read, "Meeting back late. No love. No sorry." Just her sharp, slanted handwriting, clinical and final. I stood in the kitchen, coffee machine hissing, the bitter smell grounding me as my mind spiraled. Had she always been this distant? I thought of our early days, her head on my chest, her laughter soft against my skin, the way she'd trace my jaw with her fingertips. Where had that woman gone? I called Emily. "What did you mean last night?" I asked, my voice rough, barely above a whisper. She hesitated, the phone line crackling with her silence. "Mark, I didn't mean to stir things up," she said finally. "But I've seen how she looks at you. Like you're disposable." Her words stung, not because they were cruel, but because they echoed the fear I'd buried deep. "Check her phone," Emily said softly. "You deserve to know." I didn't want to. God, I didn't. But the seed was planted, and it grew thorns. That evening, Sarah came home late, her hair slightly mussed, her blouse untucked. She kissed my cheek, a perfunctory brush of lips, and muttered something about a long day. Her phone sat on the counter, screen dark, a silent accusation. I waited until she was in the shower, the hiss of water masking my guilt. My hand shook as I picked it up. Her passcode, our anniversary, unlocked it easily, and I hated how that small trust gutted me. The messages were there, buried in a thread with Alex, work. Not her boss, not a colleague I knew. Just Alex. "Miss you already," one read, timestamp from last night, when she'd claimed to be at a client dinner. Another, "Can't wait to see you again. Same place." My stomach churned, bile rising as I scrolled. Photos too, a man's hand on her wrist, her smile wide and unguarded, the kind she hadn't given me in years. I dropped the phone, my breath ragged, the room tilting. The shower stopped, and I shoved the phone back, my heart pounding like a trapped animal. Dinner that night was a performance. Sarah chatted about her day, her voice bright, false. I nodded, my fork scraping against the plate, the sound grating in the silence of my thoughts. Did she know I knew? Was this her game, to pretend while I unraveled? I wanted to scream, to throw the phone in her face, but fear held me back. Fear of her confirmation, fear of losing her, fear of being the fool I already felt like. The next day I followed her. I don't know why. Maybe I needed proof. Something undeniable to silence the part of me that still hoped. I trailed her car through the city, the streets slick with rain, headlights blurring in the dusk. She parked outside a sleek downtown bar, one we'd never been to together. Through the window, I saw her slide into a booth, her hand brushing a man with sharp cheekbones and a smile that made my fists clench. Alex. I stood in the rain, soaked, watching them laugh, her head tilting the way it used to for me. My chest burned, a mix of rage and grief, and I wondered if I'd ever breathe right again. Back home I waited. Hours later she walked in, her coat damp, her eyes avoiding mine. "You're up late," she said, casual, as if I hadn't just seen her world overlap with someone else's. "Where were you?" I asked, my voice steady despite the storm inside. She froze just for a second, then shrugged. "Work thing. You know how it is." The lie was so smooth, so practiced, it almost felt true. Almost. I couldn't hold it in anymore. "I saw you, Sarah. With him." The words tore out raw and jagged. Her face paled, her mouth opening then closing. "Mark, it's not," she started, but I cut her off. "Don't. Just don't." The silence that followed was suffocating. Her guilt a tangible thing between us. She didn't deny it. She didn't need to. Emily arrived an hour later, her knock sharp against the quiet. Sarah was upstairs, packing, her movements frantic through the floorboards. Emily took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. "You're enough, Mark," she whispered. "You always were." But it didn't feel true. Not yet. The twist came later, when Sarah's phone buzzed on the table, forgotten in her rush. A new message from Alex. "She's leaving him tonight. We're free." My blood ran cold. Not just an affair, a plan. A future without me, built on my ruins. But then Emily's voice echoed in my mind, her fierce loyalty, her challenge to Sarah's cruelty. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't the one who was disposable. Sarah had made her choice, but I could make mine. I deleted the message, my hand steady now. Let her think she was in control. Let her walk away. I'd rebuild piece by piece with the people who saw my worth. The door clicked shut behind her, and for the first time in months I exhaled.